Hey everyone! So today I'm going to talk to you about how to render this coffee cup in Photoshop. So go ahead and start by choosing File, Open. You're going to choose the cup demo drawing provided. The first thing I want you to pay attention to is we're going to go to Image and we're going to go down to Image Size. Whenever you're going to do any kind of drawing or rendering inside Photoshop, you need to make sure you're checking your resolution. You should be working in a 300 pixels per inch final print size. So this is created at 11 by 11. Now obviously for this exercise you do not have to have it that large, but for following the demo and keeping yourself consistent with me, go ahead and leave it with this sizing. But I want to show you that if you want to change the sizing for any reason, and you want to keep that, you would type this in, and this is here is linking your height and width. So if I chose 8, it would choose 8 for both. If I unclick this resampling automatic option, you shows all 3 connected. So now if I change my resolution to something higher, let's say 600, you see my size changes as well. If I go down in resolution, let's say 150, you can see my image gets larger. No matter what you're paying attention to the fact that whatever it is at 300 resolution, your image is that size. This is important when you're looking at internet images. Most internet images are set at 72 dpi, which is why when you notice them, they are very pixelated when you zoom in, or sometimes even just a print. And that's because the resolution is very, very low. It's only meant to be seen on screen, not for print. So when you're rendering in this class, please make sure your resolution is 300. Once you open this, you want to make sure your guide's on. If they're coming on automatically, great. If not, make sure you choose Command or Control and semicolon colon. This will give you your blue guides available for lining everything up. Now that we have our guides on, let's start with getting our file set up. The first thing I want to do is unlock my layer. So I'm going to click my little lock right here on my background layer. And then I'm going to change my layer name by double clicking on the word Layer 0. That activates it to turn blue in order to change my name. I'm going to name this Outline. Now if you want and you're nervous about accidentally moving it, you can lock the position of your layer and that will lock it from moving, but you can still draw on this. Next we're going to create a new layer. We're going to name this layer by double clicking on the name, Layer 1, and changing it to Background. Next I want to fill that. You can go and hit Shift Delete or Shift Backspace on a PC, or you can go to Edit and choose Fill. Getting to the exact same place, we want to fill this with color. You choose that here, so depending on what options you have, choose color. Next, you want to make sure your mode is set at normal and your opacity set at 100%. Now I want to fill with a type of blue. You're going to want to set your CMYK at 65 and 25 for magenta and 0 for yellow and black. You do not have to choose this exact color. Any color will do. Once you're happy, choose OK and OK. Now that we have our color set, I'm going to drag it below my outline by clicking on my form and dragging it down. Now on my outline mode, I want to actually see as I draw these black lines. Here where it says normal, you'll see and find a variation of what's called blending modes. These are how the layer reacts with the layers below. I want to change it to multiply. Multiply hides white. So I'm going to choose multiply, and now the white is gone, but shows the black. If you want this reverse effect, choose screen. Next, I want to start drawing. So I'm selecting my background layer and choosing a new layer. That's the button right here next to the trash can. Now on this layer, I'm going to go ahead and name it Cup because I'm going to work on the major form of my cup. I'm going to start this off by utilizing the selection tool. There's lots of ways in which to approach drawing these shapes and forms. There's no one way to solve any of these problems. But throughout this video, I'm going to show you different ways in which you can approach this. So starting off with the selection tool, where you can also find the rectangular one as well as the ellipse marquee, make sure you're on the ellipse. Starting slightly above, I'm going to go ahead and click and pull holding down my Alt key. The Alt just is a form of center out. This does not need to be exact. We can change this at any time. Once you have your form created, go ahead and hit Shift Backspace or Shift Delete. You're going to choose your color, and I'm going to go down to 50% gray. This just gives me something to work with. Go ahead and choose OK. Now you see my dancing ants. I want to go ahead and deselect those. That's my marquee selection because it looks like little marching ants in a row. Go ahead and hit Command or Control D, and that deactivates this. If you're ever in a pinch and you can't remember what the shortcut is, you can find this under Select, and that's where you're going to find your deselect and your select. Now I want to make sure my form lines up right with my black outline. So to do this, I'm going to hit Control T and just line everything up. If you don't know the shortcut, you can go down to Edit, Transform, and Scale. Once you have, go ahead and zoom in. That's Command plus, or you can use your zoom tool on the toolbar. Going back to the Command T for transformation, I'm going to alter my egg form in order to make it fill the shape. Holding down my spacebar, moving to the other side, just making sure my form matches up. All right, pretty good. Again, all these lines are eventually going to be gone. So if it doesn't match up perfectly, as long as you keep building it consistently, it'll look great. I'm going to go ahead and choose my check mark because I'm happy with my form. Now, the next part of it here is I don't want this top portion, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So using my rectangle marquee tool and my guide here, I'm going to start here and go all the way up to the top and choose Delete. Now using my arrow key, I'm actually going to move up higher, so select other parts of my form and choose Delete again. Next, let's go ahead and work on the rim. So I'm going to start by creating a new layer, and I'm going to name this rim. Again, I'm going to grab my ellipse marquee. I'm going to zoom in a smidge by hitting Command plus or Control plus, and using my crosshair here in the center, I'm going to hold down Alt and click and pull. Again, this does not have to be perfect. We can always adjust it later. Once you think you have your form close, go ahead and hit Shift, Delete, and choose white. Once you have that form, go ahead and hit Control or Command D to deselect the dancing ants, and go ahead and use Control T to go close up and look around to see if you have any white coming out of your form. Once I'm happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and choose my Move tool. That works just like the check mark. Two different ways in which you can do that. Alright, now that I have the major rim selected, all I have to do is duplicate this layer. You can do it two ways. You can simply grab this layer, click and hold it with the mouse button, and drag it to the new layer icon, and it will duplicate. Or you can go to my upper right hand area here and choose duplicate layer. And the third option here is to right click on the layer and choose duplicate layer. The benefit of doing it on the top two choices rather than dragging it down to the new layer icon is that it gives you the opportunity to change the name of the layer. So rather than rim copy, I can actually put inside rim. And now I can choose OK. Now with this selected, we have a great feature. Since this is a rasterized layer, if I choose this little icon right here and click, this is what we call our lock transparency pixels. What does this mean? Well, rather than having to go ahead, select the marquee, and fill, you're preserving all of these checkered squares around, everything other than what is currently filled, as a 100% transparent, or in the shade in which it is transparent. So I can use my shortcut, Shift, Delete, or Edit Fill, and fill my color with anything else, and it'll only fill where I currently had that shape and in the percentage of the transparency provided. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit my shortcut for Command T, which is transformation. Holding down my Alt key, if I pull one side, I pull both sides. So I can measure my shape and then pull the other one, and everything should line up quite beautifully. Now, if you have any issues, you're welcome to zoom in and check everything. That looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to choose my check mark. And now I've quickly have two forms already created for my top rim. Now let's create the coffee. So using my inside rim, again, I'm going to duplicate that layer. So this time I'll do up here by going to duplicate layer. Rather than inside rim copy, I'm going to name this coffee. Now this time, because of my transparency lock is currently already provided, I'm going to hit my Shift, Delete, and rather than contents being 50% gray, I'm going to choose my color to be a coffee color. Let's see, 290C01. A nice rich coffee color. Feel free to choose the type of coffee you want to make. Create a coffee that has a rich cream color, or black if you want. All the options are up to you. I am going to show you some techniques on how you can get the rim to look good, no matter what the color coffee you choose. I'm going to go ahead and choose OK to this color, and OK here. So now I have my nice rich coffee fill. So next I'm going to move it to my coffee location. So using my Move tool, I'm going to click and drag, holding down Shift to keep my alignment straight, just until it reaches that black line. Next I need to worry about my size. So hitting my Command T, I'm going to drag my side in, and I'll go ahead and zoom this in to make sure you can see. Now here's the trick. It doesn't matter what the other side is, as long as you hold down Alt while you pull one side of the formation in, and the other one will match. I just needed to get to the edge here. Once it gets to the edge, I can pull up the bottom to meet the line. And since you can see it did both sides, now if I pull up a little bit without holding anything, just pulling up a little bit, now my form will go up to meet the lines. A nice clean shape. Now if you'll notice, I'm going to go ahead and choose Apply. Now if you notice, this is sticking out outside my coffee line. And we don't want that. We want it to look like the coffee's inside the cup, not hanging outside or spilling over. So here's another little fun thing. So we want this shape in here, which is our last shape we made before the coffee, which is the inside rim. Holding down the Command key on your keyboard go ahead and click on your thumbnail. This is going to give you active dancing ants, right? This is an active marquee that now allows you to change or edit things. What we want to do is hide the part of the coffee we don't want. So simply click on the mask button, and now your coffee is inside your shape. Now that we have the basic form selected, let's take a look at how to create a gradient for these forms. Let's go back to the cup. Zooming out and bringing it center. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my guides by hitting Command, semicolon. Whenever you have a rasterized shape with inside Photoshop, you want to make sure you're utilizing the gradient tool on the toolbar. That's anything created with a marquee. If you set your colors in foreground background, it will show up in the gradient panel here. But you can simply change the form by clicking on your gradient editor up here and getting all variations of gradients. We can change our color, or you can use a preset. This here is our foreground background color. This here is our foreground color to transparent. And then of course our basic black and white. This is the only one that doesn't change. These two change based on whatever colors you'll find here in the toolbar. Then you'll see another variation of presets. If you don't have those, that's okay. You can make your own or load pre-created ones from Photoshop. Double-click on the color stop in order to adjust the color. Here you will find a color panel where you can click and change the color here. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine at white, but I am going to change my black so it's not 100% black. I'm going to make this a little cooler here. Let's see. That's a nice shade, like a dark rich gray. And then I'm going to choose OK. Next you'll notice here is the type of gradient in which we want to do. You have your basic linear, radial, angle gradient, reflective gradient, and of course your diamond gradient. You can also adjust your modes as well as your opacity, and you can reverse it, which I'm going to actually need to do here because my white is on my right, not my left. And I want my brightest color on my left, so I'm going to choose my reverse where you can see the white switched. I'm not going to worry about my dither, I'm going to leave that on, and I'm also going to leave my transparency on. Keeping these features here, I'm going to go, before I apply any color, I'm going to check my cup layer and I'm going to choose Lock Transparency. That's this first icon here, just like we did when we filled color. This is important. Utilizing my radial gradient, I'm going to go to where I want my highlight to be, which is roughly here, and I'm going to click and drag out to the right outside my cup. Now you can see it kind of created a rounding effect to my form. If you are unhappy with the coloring or you wish it was lighter or darker, feel free to change it or adjust it or pull less or more. Now that I have that selected and I'm kind of happy with that color tone, if I go back to my gradient editor, I can actually save this color by clicking New. Now it appears in my gradient editor panel, so if I do change my colors or my foreground or background, it will still be available. Next, I'm going to move to my rim. Remember, that's this top section here. Now, rather than doing a radial gradient, I want to do a reflective gradient. And that's because I want kind of like a brightness happening, and then I want it to go a little bit darker. Going with my form here, I'm going to click and pull. Whoops! This is a very good reason why you need to make sure to check that you have your transparency lock on. This is what happens when you don't. So with that, choose Undo by hitting Command Z, make sure that transparency lock is on, and then click and drag again. So all we're looking at right here is this little thin rim. You can always turn off your outline to take a look at the cup and see how it's forming. Now because this is my rim, I'm not really liking how dark it's hitting right here, so I'm going to go back to my gradient editor, and rather than have this dark gray, I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit lighter. Hitting OK. Now I'm going to click and pull to change my color, and that is a little bit better for me. Next, I'm going to move to my inside rim. This is directly above the coffee. Again, I'm going to leave it where I'm utilizing a reflective gradient, but this time, rather than keeping my 100% white, I'm actually going to change my color so it's a little bit gray inside. So moving my color down a little bit, and going a hair down on my sides as well. Now, keeping my reflective gradient similar to where my highlights are, I'm going to click and pull to my side. Holding down Shift keeps the alignment. So now when I click and pull, you can see my form. If you want to have a little bit more of a dramatic lighting inside the rim, this is how it's coming from the cup, you can click and pull, but this time when you click and pull, do it on a slight angle, and that will give the illusion of the light hitting more in the back. You can always, if you want to, end up darkening the inside of the rim manually or adding another layer on top. But that gives a nice light highlight on the back. Now before we move any further, let's go ahead and save this by going to File, Save As. So we're going to name this Cup Demo, but you're going to add your last name and first name, spelled correctly, capitalizing your first and last initial. Once you have that done, make sure you save this as a Photoshop file so that way you can work on all your layers and continue with the other videos. So we just finished part 1 of the cup demo. Go ahead and start the next video.